we fast forward 5 years, what does a fully autonomous cyber attack actually look like? And why aren't most companies prepared for it today?
Within mere seconds, the end-to-end attack chain from initial access to exfiltrating data from your organization will happen pretty much instantaneously. You might get a real compromise, a true zero-day exploit happening every 2 to 3 months. But what happens in the future when you have hundreds of these in a single day?
Are you saying that getting access is inevitable, is what you do once they have access? Or are you saying you're stopping them even having access?
Correct. Attacks will happen, compromises will happen. But the question is, what do you do once it's starting to happen, and how do you block the adversary from reaching their goals?
If we fast forward 5 years, what does a fully autonomous cyber attack actually look like? And why aren't most companies prepared for it today?
Great question. So 5 years into the future, we can expect attack to happen in a fully autonomous way, meaning that within mere seconds, the end-to-end attack chain from initial access to exfiltrating data from your organization will happen pretty much instantaneously from the adversary side. Now, defenders are not prepared for this reality today, and part of the reason for it is that if you look at real compromises today, they don't happen very often. You might get a real compromise, a true zero-day exploit happening every 2 to 3 months. But what happens in the future when you have hundreds of these in a single day? How do you adapt your technology, the processes, the response to these events to be as effective as possible in order to reduce the business risk and impact that can occur from them? And from my perspective, being in the threat detection and response space for the past decade, organizations need to think through their competitive advantage, what they can do that attackers are not able to do as well as them, because everyone will have largely the same fundamental AI technology. It's about how you use it. And I believe that defenders need to use it to their advantage, which is they know their business better than anyone else. They won't know the exploit in a certain software they may or may not use better than adversaries that are specifically targeting that software, but they will know if a certain user is supposed to transfer money outside of the organization or supposed to access data in a certain data store. And that is the kind of knowledge that from the outside you just don't have access to. And this is why we in Artemis are focusing on helping defenders leverage this competitive advantage in order to detect attacks and stop them. So the way that I think about it is you can set a wall around your organization and say, okay, now people won't be able to go over the wall or won't be able to go in. In the era of AI, this is good effort, but people will find a way in. So our advice and the way that I chat about it and start to hear from many CISOs on it is to think through, once someone is in, which it is inevitable in this future reality. You ask me 5 years from now, I might tell you maybe it's 5 months from now. Maybe it's already the reality today. We'll see. But in that new reality, it's about thinking through, what do you do once someone is in? How do you ensure that you both detect someone gaining access, but also contain potential impact as fast as possible without interrupting your business? Because ultimately, this is still software or just IT activity in a real company, real business that you don't want to interrupt, and every action has an implication to it. And the way that we think about it in Artemis is that by leveraging the defender's advantage of knowing your organization, knowing what is supposed to happen and what is not supposed to happen, and understanding and helping you understand the impact of every potential compromise and potential action you can take, we are able to help defenders take the right action, either in a semi-automated or fully automated way, and to reduce the impact or completely eliminate it if an attacker is able to get in, thereby neutralizing the threat.
Just so I understand, Shachar, are you saying that getting access is inevitable, is what you do once they have access? Or are you saying you're stopping them even having access? Because it sounds like to me we're living in a world now with things like skids, for example, getting access is or hacking is now becoming inevitable or available to the masses. So are you suggesting that once they are in, what do you do to protect your infrastructure, your business?
Correct. I believe that, especially as technology will continue to improve, attacks will happen, compromises will happen. But the question is, what do you do once it's starting to happen, and how do you block the adversary from reaching their goals?
What does this even mean? I mean, when we think about all the different industries and sectors, all the, I guess, elements of our day-to-day life, what are some typical examples of an attack on a company and how that impacts the consumers? I think recently, a few months ago, we've seen situations where a attack could potentially impact flights around the world, right? We saw that, I believe, a few months ago. Can you give me, I guess, for the audience, some examples that impact the day-to-day individual?
Every company that we start to work with, we always speak about their business and risk profile. For an airline, as you mentioned, the risk might be around availability. You want to ensure that flights go up and then that they land in a smooth way. For an online retailer, you might want to ensure that when you go to your favorite e-commerce website, you're able to purchase what you want to purchase. And first you're able to do it, and then your, let's say, credit card information or personal information is not being stolen in any way from that retailer. And then obviously it goes into every aspect of your life, which is increasingly digital, right? We do everything online. We do everything via the phone or via the laptop. Everything from the way you shop for things, the way you fly or travel can be potentially impacted by attacks. And our job is to help the companies that provide consumers these services with the right cyber defense in order to prevent any impact happening to their customers.
I guess what you're saying is this is everyone, every single potential consumer, everyday user of all the different types of services that exist, not just flights. I'm assuming healthcare, everything could be impacted. So what has fundamentally changed in the last couple of years, maybe even less, that has made it imperative that a company like Artemis does exist? And we'll get to what the company does and how you're solving this problem, but what has changed in the last couple of years?
I would say the prevalence of AI technology that contains true intelligence. So previously, to perform a cyber attack, you had to have a lot of very specialized knowledge and to be able to execute it in a truly professional way. It's like cyber, let's say, crime is a true profession. Now with AI technology, the actions performed by attackers in order to compromise an organization in, I would say, steal data, steal credit card information, steal your patient's data if it's a healthcare, all of these things become much simpler with the usage of AI technology, because you can use, like you ask Claude or ChatGPT, what's the best way to make an omelet? You can also ask it what's the best way to exfiltrate data from an S3 bucket in the customer's environment. And you will ask ChatGPT, it won't answer because it has the safety guardrails, but ultimately there are many AI models in the world. Not all of them have the same robust guardrails, and this won't change. So in the past 2 years, the cost of intelligence went down significantly, and therefore the cost to perform an attack and the cost to perform a sophisticated attack, both of which were pretty high in the future, but now became much cheaper, which means we not only see more attacks with 2 levels of magnitude, but also that these attacks are incredibly sophisticated. So sophistication that was traditionally saved for nation states is now available for common cyber gangs that previously weren't able to do anything that was very dangerous to enterprises.
Scary. I mean, it makes you think the bar of entry now to the knowledge base of what to do and how to do it is now available to anyone with a smartphone device and a potential ChatGPT on their phone. I mean, I don't want to create a doomsday example, but what could a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old who has no knowledge of cyber attacks or how to attack, what could they do? How could they manipulate the system to their advantage?
That's a good question. I'll probably want to answer it to the fullest extent to not give people ideas. But I would say there are many models in the world. Not all of them have lots of guardrails in order to use these models for bad purposes and not just for good purposes. And people that are determined enough can find these models and then use this to try to perform criminal activity. The good thing is that on the defender side, the technology also keeps improving, and people are bringing this innovation in order to help companies and people defend themselves as well.
Definitely didn't want you to give anyone any examples, but I guess the reason I bring this up is I recently had a guest on the show who was talking about a company that they're building, and they talked about this concept called skids, having the availability of being able to hack at a very young age because it's available now to pretty much everyone. And that is scary. In many ways, this creates new industries and new sectors and new possibilities of how you can create new defense lines. So let's get to Artemis, because you're solving this problem. You've just recently come out with your Series A. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Sasha, tell us, what does Artemis do? Because you come from a very unique background. You've lived this world. You've worked at companies where you've applied your expertise to defend against these sort of attacks, and now you're building your own company to solve this problem. So perhaps tell us who you are, what your background is, and then tell us a little bit about Artemis.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent the past 15 years helping to detect and stop cybersecurity attacks. I started my career in the Israeli intelligence community, served there for 5 years as an officer, and then was one of the early engineers at a company called the Misto that ended up building the space of how organizations can apply automation in order to respond to security events in a faster and more consistent way. I spent about 6 years there in both the Misto and then Palo Alto Networks when we were acquired by Palo Alto Networks for $600 million in 2019. So I spent 6 years working with some of the world's largest security teams in order to help them streamline their security operations, and then left to do my MBA in the States. I did my MBA at Harvard, and when I graduated, I joined AWS and spent 3 years there leading their largest cloud security service that helps companies detect attacks in their AWS environment, and scaled it to about 100,000 customers, 12 different business lines. And overall this time, for me, the most important thing is the mission, helping companies defend themselves and their customers and help them get out of tricky days in the best way possible, and ideally have more good days and bad days at work more generally. And as part of that, when I guess that was just under a year ago, when I saw the threat landscape is changing and how attackers are increasingly leveraging AI to attack companies, but on the defense side, the technology largely remained unchanged, I joined forces with Dan, my co-founder, who is one of the top 5 experts in the world in the intersection of AI and cybersecurity. And he led all the AI in a company called Abnormal AI previously for the past few years. And we set to build Artemis, that is an AI native protection platform, helping companies detect and stop attacks across their tech stack. And the working backwards for us was helping them in this new era where attacks are happening within seconds. So we thought through everything that needs to happen, from how we ingest data to how we detect security events from it, investigate them, and help company respond to them, and think how can this be squeezed into seconds to minutes instead of traditional solutions in which it takes hours to days to even weeks to fully detect and contain a security event. And we started last year. We just came out of stealth with $70 million in funding, working with some of the largest as well as some of the fastest growing companies in the world, and helping to detect and stop security incidents every single day. And we'll continue to grow a lot over the next few years with the same mission of helping companies and people secure themselves.
The moment of containing that threat and then solving it, and we'll talk about a use case, or at least how you're going about solving this problem, but that containment moment and the speed of response from Artemis, what does that look like?
Containing something is actually not hard. The hard thing is knowing how to do it in the best way possible without interrupting the business. And I'll give an example. Let's say you are a hedge fund and you make money by trading stocks. And one of your servers was compromised, and the guidance, off the book guidance, when something is compromised, and let's say it's a EC2 instance in AWS running crypto mining software, a lot of the time they will tell you, okay, just kind of kill it so it won't continue running. And there are subtleties to it, but let's say the official guidance. Now, if as a hedge fund, this server is running trading software and it's during business hours in the US stock market, the impact to your business by interrupting this software running and potentially losing millions of dollars in trades could be worse off than letting the crypto miner running for a couple more hours. So the key here is to have the context on every asset and entity in your environment, how all of these interact with each other in order to do the containment in the right way. And a lot of the key IP with Artemis is that deep understanding of your organization, which allows us to do the containment in the right way, because we are able to discern whether the employee that was compromised, maybe we can just reset the password and it will fully remediate the event. No business impact done. But maybe, as I mentioned, it's a cloud workload running trading software, or maybe it's running your e-commerce application and it's on Black Friday. So the impact again to the business will be worse off than just letting it run for a bit. And then coordinating the response and blocking the impact in the best way possible, meaning the way that reduces the risk the most and the impact to the business the most. And that's a lot of why customers trust us to be able to guide them through the right decisions, because we understand their business. We're not just giving them generic advice that is disconnected from their specific reality.
You're basically starting with detection first before response. And you may have already alluded to the answer to this question, but just to kind of double click on that, why is that the right place to begin?
Because you have the data there. If you just look at alerts from other products, you are trying to reverse engineer why other security vendors alerted the customer that something is wrong, which is really hard to do because you don't have the complete information. But because we started from detection, we own the data layer, which allows us to truly understand the customer, generate the alerts ourselves, and then when we investigate them autonomously, we also know why they were triggered, and we have the full information of the logic, the signals, which leads to the best outcomes.
Is it possible that sometimes what you might be finding currently in your production environments as you're deploying this with customers, is it possible that at the point of detection and containment, the threat is not as dangerous or even dangerous? It might be just a booby trap, for lack of a better term. Is that, do you see those situations happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say someone was able to get in, but it got in into a machine that is one of your sandbox environment. It can access any sensitive data. It doesn't have access to the rest of your production environment. So they're there, but and you want to anyway cut off access and clean it up, but the potential impact to your organization is very, very limited.
It's like having like a bug or a virus enters your body. It's kind of inevitable considering the world we live in, but it's stopping it before it spreads and becomes a real problem.
Exactly. And the key sauce is being an immune system, right? You want to understand the body, understand what is normal and what is foreign to the body, and then know how to adjust the response accordingly.
Right. Well, Shachar, it's been great having you on the show. I want to wrap up with a few things. So you're at a very critical stage. You're building this amazing startup, and a lot of our listeners and our audience are investors and also founders, are future founders. If I think about the startup ecosystem today and the money that's going into startups and building these amazing companies, because you're in the cybersecurity space, but just generally speaking, across all of technology, where do you think the biggest opportunities right now exist?
I would say everything that AI will be dramatically better at doing as the foundation models will improve. And this is how we built Artemis, under the assumption that the models will improve and then the product will improve accordingly. This is why we design our architecture in certain ways. But also when I think about the business opportunities are what are the industries or the subparts within industries that can be disrupted because they're either done in an inefficient way today, or like in our case of threat detection, the market demand will change significantly because the reality will change accordingly to the changing technology. So I would say look at where there are significant moves in the industry or where AI technology as it will improve. And it will improve 10x in the next few years, I have no doubt. So as it will do this 10x jump, how can you position yourself to be dramatically better than any of the other existing companies? And the last thing I would say for the founders themselves is just do something you're passionate about, because it's a long journey and for me, it's fun. I'm living my dream. But if you're not passionate about the problem you're solving, the industry you're operating within, then it will be a pretty miserable journey.
Absolutely, I agree. I think it's important to have passion. I think especially for a founder, right? Because as you said, the journey is long. There's a lot of ups and downs. Just one last question from my side. So just to wrap up, we always have this request from all our guests. It's a passion of mine is to read. I'm excited and privileged to have this opportunity to meet founders like yourself and investors and have people that I can sit with, whether virtually like we are right now or in person, and have these conversations on this podcast. But I also like to always end it with asking for a book recommendation. What would be a book that you would recommend for our listeners, our audience, that you think is something that's had a profound impact on you and you'd recommend it to others?
I will go with a practical recommendation because we just spoke about founders. So that's the last thing in my mind. In the book, The Mom Test, is great for people who are newer to building and to product management because it helps you discern what people want and what people need. And you really want to build for what people need versus what people want. That's oftentimes the difference between a 7-figure deal to a 6 or 5-figure deal, and to building a successful company versus having a good outcome. It's also short. So even if you're not a big leader such as yourself, I feel like it's like 100 pages, small book, very digestible.
Love it. Shachar, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know we spoke about doing this months ago. I'm glad we finally managed to get this done. I'm excited to get this out, but really appreciate you making the time today to be on Inside the Silicon Mind.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast, and excited for you and all your listeners.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Inside the Silicon Mind. This podcast is powered by Harrison Clark. For more episodes, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. As always, stay curious, stay consistent, and stay inside the Silicon Mind.